In Venezuela, the Bolivarian National Armed Forces completed Operation Autana 2023, evicting more than 14,000 illegal miners from the Yapacana National Park. In Ecuador, the electoral campaign for the presidential election runoff started. And in Iran, the armed forces thwarted a terrorist attack which would have targeted with explosives 30 locations in Teheran. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, the Bolivarian National Armed Forces completed Operation Autana 2023 with the eviction of over 14,000 illegal miners from the Yapacana National Park in the Amazon state. The information was released by the Strategic Operational Commander of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, General-in-Chief Domingo Hernandez Lares, who detailed that over 25,000 men and women of the Army were deployed on Tepuy, Yapacana, and its slopes to complete the task of removing the illegal miners. The high official specified that the uniformed men and women remain in charge of safeguarding and protecting environmental rights. Finally, Hernandez addressed President Nicolas Maduro, informing that Yapacana National Park was declared a territory free of illegal mining.
On behalf of the Venezuelan people, and vested by its created power, invoking Almighty God, the historic example of our liberator Simón Bolívar, the heroism and sacrifice of our aboriginal forebears, and of the precursors and forgers of the sovereign motherland, we hereby declare the Yapacana National Park as a territory free from illegal mining activities. My Commander-in-Chief, from the top of the Yapacana Hills, I report to you that the National Bolivarian Force, in a perfect civic military police union, the mission has been accomplished. To integrate is to conquer. We shall overcome.
And we stay in Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro proposed to his Guyanese counterpart Mohamed Irfan Ali to hold a meeting with the Caribbean community CARICOM in order to resume dialogue to resolve the territorial dispute over Guyana Esequiba. The Venezuelan president asked Irfan Ali to cease his irresponsibility, manipulation, double standards, hypocrisy, and false victimization, while warning him that in his eagerness to please the transnational interests, he is turning Guyana into a branch of ExxonMobil. President Maduro asked his Guyanese counterpart not to allow the United States Southern Command to turn his country into a military base against Venezuela and urged him to adhere to the 1966 Geneva Agreement to solve the territorial controversy over eastern Guyana. Maduro warned that the conduct of the government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana violates international legality and jeopardizes peace in the region. And on Sunday, the Venezuelan National Assembly also rejected the statements made by Guyana's President Irfan Ali regarding the dispute over the Essequibo territory. In its declaration, the Assembly announced that on September 21st, they approved a motion for a referendum on the Essequibo territory, underscoring that it is a territory that by right and history belongs to the Republic of Venezuela, with over 200 years of history. Venezuela's National Assembly referred to the statements made by the President of Guyana in rejection of the said referendum as brazen, false, and hypocritical, and labeled its administration as a franchise of the U.S. oil transnational company ExxonMobil, which intends to appropriate oil in the disputed territory, jeopardizing peace in the region. Members of social movements in the United States held an act of solidarity against Washington's blockade against Cuba and Venezuela. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel, together with Venezuela's Foreign Minister Iván Gil, intervened in this act of fraternity with the peoples hit by the sanctions imposed by the West. The Cuban president said that both countries will win by virtue of the heroism of their peoples and the support of solidarity movements in the U.S. and the world. Correspondent Alexa Garcia, the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, addressed two fundamental issues that are affecting the world today: the unequal international economic order and, on the other hand, the global climate crisis.
We came not only to speak on behalf of Cuba, but on behalf of the group of the 77, which means speaking on behalf of the South countries. I believe there was a consensus in determining that the two fundamental issues today. What are they? Well, at the world level, the unjust, anti-democratic, unequal international economic order that must be changed and that causes the gaps between the developed and the undeveloped. On the other hand, the climate crisis, which is already an emergency, and all the problems that comes with it. These are two transversal axes. Now, there is a whole group of situations in the world, such as crises, conflicts, wars, unilateral coercive measures imposed by some countries, the hegemonic thinking of some powers, the sanctions and everything has increased this situation, for instance, the pandemic.
In this interview, the Cuban president also spoke of the importance of taking action in the face of the climate crisis, specifically with concrete measures aimed at addressing the cause of the problem, guaranteeing funds for those who need it most.
At the summit, Cuba and the group of the 77 gave continuity to the debate, and therefore they have come to denounce, and I think that this denunciation has had receptivity. Actions has been proposed, and something that also always worries me is how these actions are going to be carried out. In fact, many of these promises have been regarding change. Yes, financing and development. Nothing had happened with $1,000 million pledged for every year by the rich country. And also, how is this aid distributed? Which is not always directed to those who need it the most, something that is on my mind when I participate in summits. Something that Chavez said, presidents go from summit to summit, and people goes from abyss to abyss.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Argentinian Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, speaking at a book relaunch at the auditorium of the Education and Work Metropolitan University, discussed the current economic situation of the country. The talk titled "Of Caste Inheritance Collapses and the Future" was also the stage for the relaunch of a book entitled "After the Collapse: Conversations between Torquato Di Tella and Nestor Kirchner." Cristina Fernández de Kirchner recalled important moments in this country's recent history, mostly the implosion of the neoliberal model in Argentina, which gave way to the rise of former President Nestor Kirchner. Cristina Fernández, a former Argentinian president herself, recalled that progressive administrations first handed over the country to Mauricio Macri with low indebtedness, and then in 2019 inherited debt from the International Monetary Fund. In Argentina, close to 1.5 million people voted this Sunday in Mendoza to elect the vice governor, provincial deputies, and senators. At 8 a.m. local time, the people of Mendoza began to exercise their right to vote to elect a new provincial leader, even though the rain delayed their arrival. Therefore, it is expected that the coalitions in dispute will closely follow the polls, which will be published later in the evening. In these elections, in addition to governor and vice governor, 19 seats in the Senate and 24 provincial deputies are elected, representing the 4 electoral sections into which Mendoza is divided. Local elections anticipate the upcoming national presidential poll to be held on October 22nd. This Sunday in Ecuador, the electoral campaign for the presidential election runoff to be held on October 15th got underway. According to the National Electoral Council schedule, candidates will have, as of this Sunday until October 12th, to use the funds allotted for electoral promotion. The candidates will be touring the country to give interviews to the media and to meet with their supporters. The National Electoral Council has approved the use of $989,579 for presidential candidates to promote their agendas by hosting events and rallies. On Sunday, France will renew half of the Senate in an election in which only 78,000 registered voters will participate. The French Senate will renew 170 of its 348 seats in an election in which it is taken for granted that the classic right and centrists will repeat their historical majority. Gerard Larcher, president of the upper house, is favored to retake office and serve his sixth term, while Renaissance French President Emmanuel Macron's party is expected to remain without a significant majority. The Paris district is one of the 45 constituencies up for grabs this Sunday with 12 seats. The left, with a list that brings together almost all other progressive forces except for France Insoumise, could win in that electoral district, one of the ones that provides larger number of seats. In Russia, the newly associated territories of Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia completed the selection of their new authorities. In the Kherson region, Vladimir Saldo was elected by the Legislative Assembly, who has been acting head of these territories since October 2022. In the Donetsk region, Denis Pushilin was elected, and in Lugansk, Leonid Pasachny was appointed, both of whom will serve as acting regional governors appointed by their respective people's councils. For Zaporizhia territory, Evgeny Balitsky was elected governor after serving as interim head of the region. In Germany, police arrested a group of political activists blocking a Berlin avenue where an important marathon was to take place. Local media reported a group of activists of the Last Generation movement tried to sit down on June 17th Avenue, some 300 meters from the starting line, while others threw orange paint on the asphalt. The police quickly removed the activists, who received a fine of €2,000 for violating the ban on demonstrating along the marathon route. The protesters regretted disrupting the competition for the runners, but claimed that they had to do so because of the emergency situation and existential danger of climate crisis. In Sweden, more than 100 people gathered in Stockholm to protest the government's decision to join NATO, calling for an end to war and rejecting alliance membership. Protesters expressed their opposition to the government's abandonment of Sweden's long-standing neutrality. Protesters say NATO is not a defense alliance, but rather a nuclear-armed alliance serving the interests of the United States and waging wars abroad. They say joining NATO could lead to nuclear weapons deployed on Swedish soil, increasing the risk of nuclear attack, adding that Sweden's defense should focus on protecting its own territory, not fighting overseas wars under NATO command. The Swedish NATO accession issue has been under discussion for nearly a year. Within the military alliance, only the Turkish and Hungarian parliaments are yet to approve its membership.
The main purpose is that we want to stop the Swedish application to the NATO alliance, because we don't want to be a part of that. We don't want to be a part of a war criminal alliance that is terrorizing all around the world and starting war in different innocent countries.
We had a reputation 20, 30 years ago to be this neutral country. We could mediate between different nations in war. But now that's all gone. We've all just decided to go with the United States side. And that's why we meet here, is because we share these sentiments and we share this horror of what the future is going to be like.
We want to take our second and final short break, but remember you can visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, where you can find our special broadcastings and interviews and different programming. Hit on the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Iranian armed forces have thwarted a terrorist attack which would have targeted with explosive 30 locations in the capital Teheran. Iranian intelligence has apprehended 28 Daesh extremists involved in the plot. Iranian army officials said they raided several terrorist barracks on a series of simultaneous operations and seized various explosive devices, bomb precursors, time bomb, electronic devices, intelligent communication devices, military uniforms and suicide vests, all of which has been regarded as evidence of possible influence from abroad. In the United States, the National Hurricane Center reports that Storm Ophelia made landfall on the North Carolina coast, where it became a tropical depression. Several states on the East Coast experienced heavy rains and storm surges, which caused the suspension of activities due to power outages caused by hurricane-force winds. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reported that this year's Atlantic hurricane season is expected to be above average, with anywhere between 14 and 21 tropical storms, of which some 6 to 11 will be hurricanes. Thirteen municipalities in Brazil remain in emergency due to the extreme drought affecting this nation. Temperatures have exceeded 41 degrees Celsius in some cities. The National Institute of Investigations of the Amazon reported that the drought is due to two simultaneous climatic phenomena, which are the phenomenon of El Niño and the warming of the tropical North Atlantic. In addition to the municipalities in emergency, another 16 are under alert due to the multiple effects. The drop in level of waterways has caused water supply problems in some localities, while the city of Sao Paulo reached record temperatures during the last 48 hours. In Colombia, more than 500 hectares of bushes and pastures have been consumed by forest fires, affecting the municipality of Yaguara, Huila, for 5 days. According to the Huila Disaster Risk Management Office, some families have been evacuated from their homes due to high temperatures and ahead of a possible spread of the flames. Other sectors such as Santa Elena and Loma La Venturosa have had some 200 hectares of bushes and grass burned. Firefighters officials have confirmed they have managed to control several fire outbreaks in the mountain area, for which they had the support of Colombian Air Force, who used helicopters to prevent the wildfires from spreading to populated areas. Like this, we have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.